Peter Lucht's interview of Principal Nate Mylin.
Educational Leadership Miniseries by Peter Lucht.
So Peter Lucht here, sitting down with Nate Mylin. Awesome man, good friend, great principal. Thanks so much, Nate, for taking the time to meet with me today.
Thanks, Peter. Glad to do it.
Greatly appreciate it. Walked in this morning, saw you greeting kids by name, which is awesome. Welcoming them back from spring break. No, personally, you got a great heart, and it's cool to see that. And I know that's not something that's just on the display, because I'm coming to video. You have that genuine heart that's reaching out for kids. So thanks for your role here. I know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know you're the administrator for my wife and over my kids here. So entrusting my family in your care, and definitely super happy that you are the guy in charge here.
Thanks, and we love your family.
Oh, thanks. So for the interview, I got some fun questions maybe to start out with at the beginning, and then we can get into some more challenging questions. If there's any that I ask that you don't agree to, just feel free to say like pass or skip or something like that. Play the reverse Uno card, then suddenly I have to answer it instead.
Okay, I'll do my best to answer them truthfully.
Good. First one maybe is, what's your favorite color?
My favorite color is green.
All right.
Don't know why, probably environmentally conscious.
All right. Good. Favorite animal?
Oh dear, my favorite animal would be like a manatee.
Manatee, okay. So probably not the same answer to this question then. Favorite food?
Favorite food? Oh my gosh, I have so many. But I like my smoothies.
Mm-hmm.
And I like seafood, all kinds of seafood and fresh fish.
Yeah, sushi too, right?
Sushi, yes, that's right.
When I pulled up this morning, as I was walking in, I could hear the music kind of going, pumping up students in the morning, some worship music, which is great. If you personally had a theme song that was playing, either when you entered a building or a classroom, what would it be and why?
Oh, simply, I've got Peace Like a River. I think it, just like that song. It's a good old one, and I'd like that to be what my life is like, having peace like a river.
If you were sitting down to write your own biography, what would be the opening line to your story?
Read on if you dare.
That's a challenge. That's awesome. You are the best principal I know, hands down. And you're currently not only a personal friend, but also serving as a principal for my own kids. But when did you know that you wanted to be a principal?
I probably knew early on in my teaching career, probably in the first couple years. And I think it was a friend that suggested EPPSP and that I should get my training. So I thought that sounded like a good idea. And so that's what I did. I decided to get that training, and it took me a long time to use it, but I can explain that later possibly. So. All right.
So you probably have good days and hard days as being a principal. What makes something a good day as a principal?
What makes a good day is when my schedule clears up and that I can actually go around and be relational and talk with the teachers, sit in on some classes without doing an official observation, and mingle with the kids, do a morning meeting with the kids, read to the kids, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Conversely, what is it, or what makes it a hard day to be a principal?
What makes it a hard day? Well, I love my job, and I have many, many good days, and I feel like that relational part helps your job be a good job and makes for more easy days. But the ones that are hardest are probably when I have back-to-back meetings all day long, because I'm the kind of person that needs a little bit of a mind break or a brain break. And occasionally when, and thank goodness they're few and far between, but occasionally when a parent kind of comes at you in without using their best manners or their best discernment. And so, but as a principal, we have to deal with that. And I don't think I've ever had a situation where I haven't been able to turn it around, and at least by the end of the conversation, end on a civil note. So,
Wow. So you mentioned relationship in the workplace here. How do you balance being both a friend and a boss?
Well, I think that is an important one. I've thought about that quite a bit because I don't know if EPPSP still does this, but or at least somewhere in my training, they talked about that that you're not there to be a friend, you're there to be a leader, and that it's very hard to be friends with the people that are under you. And while I would generally agree with that it can be difficult, I think there's something to be said for taking the risk to have relationships with your staff, and even ones that you can call close friends. And to me, that's a risk worth taking because, that's what life's all about, getting in with the gritty with people. And I'm very transparent, and when there's an issue that's business, I will often say that, especially if it's someone that's a good friend, and be transparent though and say, this is something I need to say as a friend and as a boss. And I've never had anybody not take that well. And so right now, especially at this school, it's going really well, and I would consider all the staff as friends. And we maneuver those relationships pretty easily right now.
Sure. That's awesome. So then continuing that relationship theme, obviously have a great family. You were just down in Florida over spring break, and overheard that you were looking at schools and everything for Tenny, and just awesome family, awesome kids. So how do you balance the work life and the home life then so that you can still be husband and father?
Well, I don't always get that right, but I have a wife who's very transparent with me and lets me know when I don't get it right. And sometimes your kids do that too. So it's good to keep each other in check. But for the most part, I try to turn off the phone at certain times, especially if you're on vacation, or if I'm going to use the phone, remove myself from the family a little bit and try to go to a private place and not do it too long, just enough to check on emails or pop a couple emails off that I need to. And then, giving my family plenty of good quality time is important.
You also mentioned kind of a brain break earlier, so let's take maybe a little brain break from some of the heavier questions. Let's go back to a fun one. If you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be and why?
If I could have any superpower in the world, right now off the top of my head, I would say that it would be great to have the power to go back in time and to meet anybody that I wanted to meet.
Wow. Any names at the top of that list?
I've read a lot about Abraham Lincoln. I think he's the kind of leader that I respect or would have respected greatly. And from what I've read about him, I just think I would have enjoyed his personality, his storytelling, that he could be casual in the White House, even with his children, and get on the floor and play with them, that he was a relational person and that he made wise decisions. And so I would have loved to go back and chat with him a little bit.
Wow. Good choice.
I also liked Lincoln because he also was not afraid to put people around him in leadership that were directly opposite of him, either politically or that even challenged him. And to me, that's a strong leader when you have people around the table and that you go to other people as resources that you don't necessarily agree with or that you know are strong personalities or that might not even be your best fan. To me, that's an important aspect of leadership that made him an even stronger leader.
Wow. So not just surrounding yourself with yes people.
Definitely not. I try not to surround myself with yes people.
Yeah. All right. Vulnerability, kind of a sensitive subject. So do you think that people should be vulnerable in the workplace, or what's your take on that?
Well, everybody has to kind of feel that out for themselves. It's kind of a personal choice, but I've chosen to be more vulnerable with people and to be very open and transparent with people. Sometimes I'm way too transparent for their comfort, but I'm just at that point in my life where I want to be honest and transparent and to get to know people and to let them know who I am. And sometimes you take the risk that will offend somebody, but oftentimes I found that even if you're transparent and vulnerable and they get offended by something that you've said, that they may still come around, especially if they see that you are consistent and that you're honest and that you have a good heart. Then they are more than likely will come around at some point.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like you are valuing not just the love side, but the truth in there. So you've got that mixture of truth and love, which sounds a little bit familiar with some of Jesus's teachings on that.
I hope to.
So I know that your faith is very important to you. See that in your daily life, see that in your interactions with others, your personal choices, and something that's very evident, which is great. What role has your faith played in your personal and professional development?
In my personal development, well, it's been a part of my life since I was probably in first grade, and I had a great kindergarten teacher, or first grade Sunday school teacher named Mrs. Ford, and so she and her husband both led Sunday school, and that got me started on a whole my whole life filled with Christian values, and also accepting Christ as my Savior. And throughout my some really difficult times in life. In college, there were some tough times, and I could always fall back on my faith, and it's what actually propped me up and helped me make better decisions that allowed me to have an even better life, so that you don't spiral out of control. And some difficult times that I had in other places too, or I did a stint of 6 years of working in Scotland, and there was a very difficult time there where a friend that was like a grandfather to my children and very close friend and was a mentor to me, and he committed suicide before we left Scotland. So that was a really tough time, and I don't think I would have gotten through it without my faith.
Yeah, there's not any easy follow-ups to that, other than to say, yeah, your faith is certainly self-evident, and I see not only just personally, but the love that you show others. I'm sure that you did your very best to be there for that family as well in that moment. I'm glad that you were saying that your faith kept you going there too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then my faith played a big part in this job. This is not the job that I thought I wanted. And so God has a funny way of doing that. And actually, it's my wife that always has these words of wisdom, that she's just very consistent. And she told me all along that the place that you will go next, or that God wants you, the people there will be calling you there. The people will be wanting you to come. And so I thought I wanted to be someplace else, or we were looking internationally. We were looking at Hawaii. We were looking at different places around the country. I had a job offer in South Carolina, and I also thought I possibly wanted to be at my old school where I had been a teacher for many years, and those doors just weren't opening as much, and so that was confusing to me, because I had been a valued teacher there. Done some an administrative role there towards the end of my time there, but I wasn't principal, and so anyway, it wasn't in what God wanted me to do. And in fact, the more I prayed and got into my devotions and prayer life, the more it became really evident that that Traders Point was going to be the place for me. So I have a whole testimony there with the Traders Point and my experience with the interviews and the people being very welcoming, both the administrators and the parents and the teachers, and it was exactly like my wife had said it would be. So that was kind of funny, and so it was evident to me that this was my calling.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I remember going into teaching myself. I was debating between doing a sales gig and teaching, and felt called by God to be a teacher, and yet I had this backup plan in my mind that I could always do sales, and God kind of worked in a funny way to teach me a lesson on that, and saying I don't need a backup plan for him. So he had something in mind, and he opened up the right door at the right time, and so trusting him in those moments. It's cool to see that you were doing not quite the same, but similar, and looking around and trusting that God is going to lead on the process, and that you're confident of his call for you. That's great. So you mentioned some of the preparation that you had as a teacher and some administrative experiences. Were there any experiences that you had that you feel God was preparing you to become a principal?
Oh my gosh, when I look back, my whole teaching and being a STEM coordinator and working overseas and being an administrator overseas and teaching college physics, teaching high school physics and math, teaching middle school science, teaching 5th grade, teaching 3rd grade, all of my experiences overseas. I just see that God has put all that in my bag of experiences so that I would be ultra prepared to lead at Traders Point. And I do feel very well prepared, including the time that I had at EPPSP. But that was very early on, and I let that sit for a while because I knew myself. I was offered a job right after getting my EPPSP training at a smaller startup Christian school downtown, the Oaks Academy. And I just accepted a job teaching 5th grade, which I'd never taught before. And in fact, it was my first elementary school experience. And so I just knew that I wanted more elementary teaching experience. I was enjoying the teaching. And in fact, my good friend who I told you about earlier in Scotland, who was a mentor to me at that time, told me, he said, guard against your ambition. He said, when you have a new opportunity come your way, always check yourself and is it really what is the best for you at the time? Is it really what you're needing for you, your family, your children? Or are you just doing it for ambition's sake? So that would be a bit of advice that I ran that job through my head under that filter. And it would have been great for my career. And I would be maybe at a different place and definitely have more money than I have now. But that's not... it would not have made me happy. It would not have been a good choice for my family at the time.
So that might be a message that you would communicate to Butler alumni or current, past, future, that kind of thing? I
would say several things to Butler alumni. First of all, I loved EPPSP. It was a great experience and trained me well. And but I always remember a few sayings in life that a wise person doesn't wait for opportunities to come to them. A wise person makes their own opportunities, and I feel like I really do live my life that way. I would say that when I went through EPPSP, there was a big push to either stay in Indiana or become an Indiana principal, or at least maybe I felt that push. I remember one of our sessions, there was he was at the time the president of the Indiana Principal Leadership Academy, and I didn't appreciate that man. I'm glad I don't remember his name, so I don't have to talk about him exactly. But I don't appreciate him because he asked us what we want to do, where we see ourselves in the next 5 or 10 years. And I remember everybody went around and everybody was saying, "Oh, I see myself as a principal, next year, or someplace in Indiana. And I see myself being a superintendent. I see myself doing this." They were all leadership roles. And I didn't have that aspiration exactly at the time. I knew I wanted it sometime. But so I said, I see myself being back in Scotland and working at some capacity back in Scotland, where I'd already had a 3-year stint. And he looked at me and said, "Well, what are you doing here then?" And I thought that was the worst comment anybody could ever make. I've never forgotten it. And but it didn't dishearten me so much as just kind of made me a little bit angry at him, that I felt he didn't quite have it in terms of his outlook on life, because I ended up going back to Scotland. It wasn't in the next 5 or 10 years. It was, I think, 15 or 16 years later, and it ended up being a great experience for my family. So I would say keeping to your dreams, keeping to your heart of what makes you happy. You can use EPPSP skills anytime you want. So don't ever let that limit you. You don't have to be a principal with them. You could be a great curriculum director. You can go overseas and lead in different ways. You could become an athletic director. You could just keep teaching like I did for about 15 years or so after getting my EPPSP degree. And it made me, leadership in the classroom, but also leadership in your school as a teacher. You don't have to jump into a leadership role. So anyway, I was glad I waited, and it worked out really well for me.
That's awesome. Sounds like you are pretty in touch with what's central and core to you, your own personal mission and vision. Would you say that you have a personal mission and vision that you would be able to share with others?
My personal mission and vision is just to be open to what Christ has for me in my life, and I sometimes fall short in that. In my prayer life, I do try to pray every day. So I would say that praying every day is going to be your best way to discern what God wants for you in your life. And the better my prayer life is, the more peace I have, like a river, in my life. And so when things aren't going so well, I try to remember to try to get back to prayer and say sorry to the people I need to say sorry to, and make those relationships right, and try to get back on track.
Some of that vulnerability and honesty and that truth and love kind of pouring out there. That's great. What about for a school setting? Maybe you're in a spot where you need to develop a mission or vision, or maybe you want to communicate a mission or vision. How would you best go about doing that?
Well, if I was developing a mission and vision, talking to your constituents, talking to students, if you're in a school setting, because they often have great depth and insight that we sometimes don't give them credit for. And anytime you're going to do something major at the school, from my now previous experiences at schools where I've been vulnerable and welcomed student input in, the teaching ends up being so much better. The unit that design tends to end up being so much better when kids input to it. The engagement is so much better. And so if I were developing a mission and vision, I would go right to the children of all ages and never limit the age at all, because you'll never know what a child's going to say. And sometimes they can be very prescient. They just know, they know what... They know what works. They know what they like. They're very open. They haven't been corrupted so much by the world. And so when you open up to hearing a child's voice, you often get your best output from that. You'll get they'll amaze you every time.
A follow-up question with that. Let's say that there's a family that's visiting your school and they'd like to, or they're at least considering attending. Is there something that you would communicate to them as part of that decision-making process that you would say, this is what our school is about, this is who we want to be?
Well, I think at any school, your best recipe for success for a student is that the student feels loved at the school by their teachers and their administrators and the staff, and that that there's a curriculum that they can engage with, and that they feel that they have a voice and an input into. And so if you get those things right, which I think we do well, we don't do it right 100% of the time, but we have an outdoor ed program that I was able to start here, and they let me hire an outdoor and environmental education coordinator, and he's amazing, and he's helping to develop that program. We've brought STEM to the school, more STEM, and a direct initiative to engage students in the engineering design process from preschool through 12th grade. And so outdoor ed, STEM, a strong math program. We've changed the math program around to where it's more constructivist in approach and hands-on, and using manipulatives, and listening to kids' thinking, because there's not just one right answer when you answer a math problem. You really need to listen to kids' thinking. And that creates happy learners, happy children, and soon the word spreads, and you don't have to have such a razzle-dazzle marketing department if what you're doing in the classroom and your teachers, if what you're doing in the classroom is engaging, and your teachers are hired well and have that know-how to know how to engage students, and that they truly love children and love being around children. And then you've got a great recipe for success, and the rest will take care of itself, really.
Yeah, my kids love that outdoor ed program that you were talking about. They're often talking about what they've done in that class, or what animal they've interacted with or seen evidence of. A lot of great things happening there. I know you mentioned the STEM. There's robotics occurring here. My wife's a part of that, and just some great things happening in this building. So yeah, any family would be lucky to attend, for sure.
And what I've learned, if you don't have Christ at the center, so as a Christian, this is the first truly Christian school that I've ever worked for, and that the rest is really all fluff. I used to think that my kids needed a great science background and a math background, and I was working so hard to develop those. And if you let the spiritual side, or if you let your spiritual life go to the side, then the other stuff's all for naught. So the fact that we have a strong spiritual foundation at our school, and that kids are engaged with worship every day and prayer, that makes everything else just sweeter. So the STEM and the math and the outdoor ed, and when you connect all that to your faith, you really have a whole child-centered environment where they are happy.
Seen you on multiple chapels doing some dance moves. I might even have some blackmail footage of you in a hula hoop at one of the father-daughter dances. So,
Probably.
Yeah.
Some other things.
Do you want to talk any about the chapels and your ability to have fun in those settings and lead in that regard?
I'll give my father credit. There were a lot of things my parents did wrong. But that's okay. You look back and you think there's a lot of things I'm doing wrong with my children too. I hoped to have learned from what my parents gave me, but they did a lot right too. And my dad always taught me a sense of fun and whimsy and spontaneity. And so I really thank him for that part of my personality. And so as a principal, EPPSP is always so big on the dressing for success. And I'd say that is important, especially for first impressions. And you dress to the hilt and you go to those interviews and you go knock them out of the park. But once you get comfortable in your role and once you become a principal, my suggestion would be not to dress up or all the time, or to at least have some days where you let the teachers wear jeans, or where you have your spirit days. Those are really important. And dress up, go all out for the spirit days. Dress up for any days you can around Christmas or Easter or whatever it might be, or St. Patrick's Day, and have fun with the children. They really love it. And connecting with the parents out in the car line, I've noticed that they like it when I dress up too, or I bring a stuffed animal. You've probably seen around my classroom, around my office, that I have a lot of stuffed animals and a lot of toys. Goodwill is one of my favorite places to shop. You get some great deals there. And the kids just light up when they come into my office. They do. They say my office is amazing. That's often the word that comes out of their mouth, because I have things that they like, and it doesn't look stuffy, and it doesn't look just like the school colors and monotones. And I just have fun stuff, and I bring it out and share it and take it to the classrooms and take it out to the car line and greet them in the morning with a stuffed animal, change it around. And they really appreciate that. I can see it. I do that for chapel some, and again, just push yourself out of your comfort zone, and don't always dress like you're going to a black tie occasion, because that does not connect you well with people, your teachers either. So there's a time and a place for it, and I'd say 3 days out of the week, I wear a tie quite a lot at school, but there's many ways to dress down a tie too.
Another question then. You mentioned hiring the right people as part of your ability to maybe have the environment and be able to tell families that this is one reason that you should be here is because of the other people as well. How would you go about that, or what do you look for in hiring a potential employee?
Sometimes you just know. You've got to trust your gut sometimes, but you can ask the right questions, dig into that resume, try to have them for a practice teaching session in front of kids and staff if you can arrange that, because that will show you a little bit of their style. And but sometimes just getting to know the person, and people say that I hire well. I think it's my relational side that allows me to hire well. I think I can figure out a person pretty quickly, even within the first 30 minutes of chatting with them. And but I'm also cautious too, and check out that resume and check out the references, and make sure that you hire someone that is relational, that knows their craft well, that knows teaching well, or whatever position you're hiring them for. And if you hire well, again, that takes care of a lot. If you hire someone that connects with students and connects with people, you are going to have a very happy environment. And getting teachers professional development is really important too. But I really love the book from Ron Clark. If you haven't seen the Ron Clark Academy yet in Atlanta, make sure you look up that YouTube. I've sent many teachers on professional development to Ron Clark Academy. He's got a very fun style. He stands on tables. He engages children. He challenges them. You know, if a teacher's ever telling you, "Oh, don't be so rigorous," you know, you can't make it too hard for children. You really need to look at that teacher, because kids like to be stretched, and if you do it in the right way, you're going to get so much more out of children if you stretch them than if you don't. And so they stretch them at Ron Clark Academy, but they have a lot of fun. And he wrote this book called Move That Bus, and I'll never forget that because it's a very short book. I would recommend it for every person going into leadership and every teacher, actually, because you can see what kind of person you are. There's the people that are the walkers, there are the joggers, and there are the runners. And what that book basically, to sum it up, says, if you're going to put professional development money into your people, put it into your runners. And the more that you develop those people that are already engaged with students and that are doing what you want and making life fun around the school, you're going to get so much more out of your professional development dollars. And don't hang on to the joggers or runners or the walkers. Don't ever hang on to a walker. If you've got a jogger that you think you can make a runner, you can give it a try. But I've done that, and it's not easy, no matter how much professional development you get. So my advice there is to not hang on to the walkers and the joggers because they just hold you back. And don't hang on to people that have a bad attitude and that are creating negativity in the copy machine room or wherever it may be. You know who they are, and I've just learned that don't hang on to them. You'll be so much more pleased with yourself and with your staff if you replace them with other runners. And time and again, that's shown to be true here. And the other teachers appreciate it. You will appreciate it. The students appreciate it. Don't waste your time on people that aren't getting with the program or that don't engage students or that are going against actually what you're trying to do. And in fact, there's one other category that I think we need to call Ron Clark about. We've said there's also, besides walkers, joggers, and runners, there's another category called trippers, and they're the very worst kind, so you definitely want to try to get rid of those if you can.
All right. Flashbacks to watching the Walking Dead, and maybe if not being able to run very fast and get away from what you want to go for. A couple more questions. You've been so generous with your time, so thank you so much for that. You mentioned the book. What is it? Where are you at on the bus or something? Like that?
Move That Bus.
Move That Bus.
And there's another one that he's got called Molasses Classes. So that one's kind of a fun one too. The End of Molasses Classes. Make your classes fun. If you're going to be a teacher, for heaven's sakes, make it exciting for kids.
Absolutely.
Figure out how to do that if you don't know how to do that.
Is there a book that you're reading currently? So That the Next Generation Will Know. That's the name of the book. It's a very long title. So That the Next Generation Will Know. And it's by Sean McDowell and Jay Warner Wallace. And it's a Christian-based book about how important it is to teach from a biblical worldview. Final question here. You're also serving as the administrator in charge of my wife's building. What's it like to be able to tell my wife what to do?
Oh, well, you should know that. You never tell your wife what to do. So, Peter's wife, Christy, she's very much a self-starter, and I was very pleased, too, that she's taking EPPSP. Mm-hmm. And so I really don't have to tell her much what to do. She's self-motivated and engages with students, and she takes direction very well if you ever need to ask her about something, or if you're looking for something, she will always give you 110%.
Yeah, she's quite honestly the best teacher I know. Any recommendations on flowers that I should get her after she sees that last comment on the video?
Lots and large.
Lots and large.
That's
all right.
what I would say. There you go.
I'll go hunting.
Stargazer lilies. There you go. Those
Okay.
are always good ones.
Awesome. Well, Nate, thanks so much for the time. It was great getting to know more about your background and hearing from your heart the kind of principal you are, the kind of man you are. Definitely grateful for your role in my family's life personally. So thank you so much for that, and grateful that you were here at this school. See reflections of Christ working in you, and I see that work in others as well within the building, and it's just it's amazing to see. So I definitely enjoyed getting to know more about you and learning from you even in this interview setting, and I hope and pray that others that are watching this likewise feel encouraged and motivated and able to learn from your example as well. So, well,
thanks, Peter. I'll leave you with one little saying that my mentor in Scotland shared with me many years ago that I always love sharing with children, and you just need to think about it a little bit. But he used to tell his students under him that if you do nothing when you're young, you may end up doing nothing when you're old.
Oh.
And it's some sort of old Scottish proverb, and I love reflecting on that one, and it does make you think.
All right, great.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Nate.